Hello and welcome to a new episode of Other Record Labels. I'm your host, Scott Orr, where we talk about the art and culture of running a record label. And I believe, I should double check this before I hit record, I believe this is our 101st episode, which is incredible, episode 101. Thank you so much for listening, everyone who's been following along since back in 2018. And we talk about the origins of this podcast in today's episode because it's a really exciting episode. You know, this month and for these couple of episodes in the future, we're focusing on the topic of starting a record label and new record labels. And I know many of our listeners are in the process of starting their first label and are dreaming about and doing research for starting a record label. If that's you, I've been putting together this resource. It's a free download. It's called the Record Label Toolkit. You can get it by going to otherrecordlabels.com/toolkit, and hopefully there's some tools and resources in there that will help you get started and demystify part of the process. It's a free download. There's a sample contract in there, a sample accounting spreadsheet, and there's a workbook and some checklists for you. So go to otherrecordlabels.com/toolkit. This is an exciting episode because we're talking with the record label called Totally Real Records. Totally Real is a great name because it's obviously this, sarcastic name that came out of this place that we all have, the imposter syndrome. In fact, when we talk about the imposter syndrome of starting a record label, and I have it myself all the time, but I was even interviewed a couple months ago with Darius from Secretly Group and the founder of Jaguar. And that was the first question I asked him, and of course they've released records from Phoebe Bridgers and Bon Iver and arguably one of the biggest indie labels right now. And I asked him if he still has the imposter syndrome, and he said he does. And that was inspiring and enlightening to hear that coming from someone like that. And so today's record label is kind of based out of that reluctancy and that insecurity of starting a record label that I know that all of us feel in the early stages, and even 10 years on. And so I'm excited for you to hear this. This is also a cool episode, and we go into it a little bit too, because Brian from Totally Real has his own podcast called Subliminal Inevitable. And I know a lot of our listeners enjoy that podcast as well, which is the original podcast that interviews record labels. And he was doing it long before me. And we talk a little bit about that. And I apologize to him for treading on his territory. Anyway, thank you so much for following along and listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode. This is exciting. I'm excited to talk to you because it's like 3 days from Christmas or whatever it is, and I'm kind of baked, and it was nice to be like, oh, this is going to be an easy one. I don't feel like I wasn't
You're
stressed.
not intimidated by me.
No. I see what, no, I could see how you would think that. No. Well, I mean, I do feel, no, I'm not intimidated because I know that, first of all, you have a new label, and second of all, you're a podcast interviewer. So I know that you're empathetic to the situation. So, but also, it's just, I just feel like we have so much in common, and I just felt relaxed coming into this. I'm like, this is going to be fun.
Me too. I've been looking forward to this. I've been running around doing finishing up Christmas shopping and stuff like that, and various holiday stress things. And I was kind of like, okay, at 4 o'clock, I just get to sit down and talk to Scott
and talk about myself,
and talk about myself, or talk about whatever we talk about. Because I love to talk about things that have nothing to do with what people are expecting to hear, but. I'm just looking forward to it.
Okay, so I mean, let's go. I met you because you host a great podcast. I can't say that word. Interviewing record labels, and the original record label podcast, which our users need to know, our listeners need to know that. And I remember you. Here's what's funny, because we're talking about your new label, and which, by the way, when did that start officially? Was it in 2020?
I know it's a little confusing. So I came up with the idea for doing a label in 2018, got the name, sat on some, socials and stuff, but then didn't do anything with it until
2018. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I didn't do anything with it until 2019 when I was putting my band Mount Sharp was getting ready to put out some music after not putting any out for a long time, and I was uploading a single to streaming platforms. And there's that moment where it's like, is there a label name? I was like, well, I'll use this fake label name I made up a year ago.
Yeah.
So I did that, but that still wasn't really the official start of it. It didn't officially start until 2020, earlier this year, when I put out a single for a friend's band. At that point, it was really just, well, let's use this name. It kept going that way, where I was like, oh, let's do this with my fake label.
Yeah.
Until late, like midsummer, kind of.
Okay.
I was like, okay, I'm actually going to use this as a name and turn it into a business.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. I remember you often tweeting that you were resisting the urge to start a record label, which you eventually did. Why did you feel like starting a record label was inevitable for you?
Inevitable. That word just haunts me, huh?
Yes.
I guess I did feel it was inevitable. I was always maybe worried that when I was approaching record labels to interview for my podcast, that people thought, oh, this guy just wants to start a record label and like get info and get dirt and get insider stuff. And it wasn't. That was never my case with starting the podcast. The only reason I started doing a record label podcast was because at work, an opportunity came up for, we needed to replace a podcast that left the network, and they offered it to me, and they're like, well, it has to be like kind of in the indie rock realm. That was kind of the hole that had to be filled, and you have to have a theme, some kind of theme. It could be this, that, or the other, and this is what other people do. I was like, well, I don't know, I'll feature indie labels. I like record labels, and there's some cool ones I follow. I'd like to have a reason to dig into the music more. So I started that, and it was really just a playlist show for the first 50 episodes. And then I was like, this is getting old. I want to do something different. I'm going to start trying to interview people.
Right.
Yeah, because at that point I was reaching out to the people who ran record labels to ask them about it, to get new music, to get some background. And then I figured, well, I'm in touch with most of these people anyway. Why don't I like bring them in and see what else we can get out of it for the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So that was all it was. It wasn't that I had a personal interest in starting a record label or anything, but along the way, I became more and more interested in the world of it, how things work and the people involved in it and all of that. And I guess it really didn't become a thing until 2020, because I think if you asked me a year ago what the like dream music world thing I would do was, it would be start a venue. It would be, have my own venue.
Okay.
And that was always my thought. I was always like a venue person. But like, I don't know, I'm 40 years old and I haven't done that yet. So
Right.
I didn't think that was like definitely going to happen. And then this year really made it, clear that that's not going to happen anytime soon. So I think that allowed me to kind of shift my goal to a different kind of thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Were interviewing these labels, was that inspiring for you? Was it convincing you that you could do it?
Absolutely, yeah. It definitely convinced me that I could do it, and gave me ideas. Lots of ideas of how people do things, how not to do things. All of that. Like, I'm sure that along the way you've talked to people and learned about how they're doing things and approaching things.
Absolutely.
As a label, and it's shifted what you thought you were able to do.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think your position, I mean, when I I was in a similar position with you, except I had a label. And so, and I actually was trying to get intel from them. I don't know if I said that, but I certainly was trying to learn from them. But I think it helps with the imposter syndrome, especially when you talk to everyday people, like you and I do, who are running great record labels. You must have think, wow, I can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. But on this, the same hand, there are also plenty of times where I'm like, wow, that is so overwhelming when they get into some of the stuff that I know nothing about.
True.
And again, everyone is so different. The way they run their labels are so different, and maybe how adept they are at different parts of it, different skills are very different. But Yeah, there are moments where I've been like, ooh, I don't know if I'm up for that.
Actually, I totally agree with you. And I don't know if it's like a certain area that I'm just not passionate about, or a certain area I just don't have the energy of because of my age and stage. But I totally know what you mean. There's times where I'm like, that's not for me.
Yeah, for sure.
There's so many, on that note, there's so many facets to starting a record label. There's discovering new bands. There's the promotional side of things, the technical or even the administrative. Was there one part of the job where you thought, this is my area of expertise, I'm really good at this, or maybe beforehand that gave you confidence to start a label, or something that you discovered when you were running the label?
Sure. Well, for a long time, I've always kind of been the person or one of the people in my like social circles or friend groups who was the one who helps the band, the one who people will come to be like, hey, we made a record, what should we do? Or we need to play shows, we don't know how to book anything. All the way down to being hired to do press photos, make videos, do cover art for people. But not really specializing in one of those things, just kind of like, people knew if they were a musician and doing a thing, I might be able to help them. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, so that, that has gone on, and designing, like doing layouts and everything and helping people order their records. So, that's been going on for maybe like 15 years or something like that.
Wow.
And I've been trying to get that under control over the past couple of years, basically since I had a child. I was like, okay, I can't say yes to helping everybody just because they asked.
Yeah.
And just help them out. And then that's just a thing I did that goes in a portfolio that I don't really use. So, my thinking was kind of like, I shouldn't not waste my time doing that, but I shouldn't exert all this energy into something that just floats away. If I'm going to do this stuff, I want to put it under an umbrella that I can kind of take ownership of and grow into something.
Sure.
So that's like the extremely rational thinking of starting a record label for me.
I think that's beautiful, because I was the exact same way. I mean, I was the first one of my friends to find out how to make CDs at a cost-effective and independent level. I was the first one of my friends to get my music on iTunes at the time, and so I just basically, and it's not that I was smarter than them, I was just ahead of them by a couple of months. And so I could just answer those questions. And that was long before I ever thought about starting a record label. It's so interesting how that's the story for a lot of people who have labels.
Yeah. I felt like I was kind of doing a bunch of stuff that along the way, maybe through these interviews, I realized it was, a lot of that fell under the umbrella of running independent, sort of like DIY record label.
Yeah, right, totally.
Yeah. Then, but in terms of the actual skills, I'd say that the curation of music, like finding artists who, at least to me, I think the music is really interesting, has potential, and the people could have a really successful career, and whatever that word means to them. So that's probably the number one thing, that the biggest interest for me. Like, I'm so psyched when I go on Bandcamp and see someone just uploaded a record and no one has bought it yet.
Yeah.
And I fall in love with it.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. That's hard to find. It's not easy.
I've had some luck lately. I got to say.
That's great.
Yeah. Since I kind of branched out from, immediate friend group, essentially, of the first couple artists with the label, there's 3 that I have come across that way and started working with. And I've been extremely excited about and happy with how that's worked out, from like finding random artists.
So are you able to search? You're able to search on Bandcamp, like based on upload, right? Like recently uploaded?
Yeah, I mean, you can look at newest arrival. I'll just like go to the homepage and scroll down to newest arrivals and stuff, and click through different genres, and see what artist name and cover art catches my eye, and I listen to a lot, but it doesn't happen often.
Interesting.
I get to do that, but when I do, I usually listen to a lot.
Well, I think it's part of your ethos too, because I mean, if anyone follows you on Twitter, you can just tell that you're a champion of, I mean, even your show, but you're a champion of other people's music. You're a champion of other labels, and you're a fan first.
Absolutely.
The name,
Big fan.
Let's talk about the name, Totally Real Records. It has a Simpsons vibe to it. Like it's very tongue in cheek. I think it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite names I've heard this year. But you have to, like, there is something self-deprecating about it, right? Like you're almost like reserving, you're tempering people's expectations.
That's the perfect way to put it. Thank you for saying that, by the way, that you
you're welcome. It's true.
Like, I'm always worried about it. And there have been a couple issues where, like ours have gotten a blog write-up or something, and they make a snarky comment about it. Like they think it's fake.
Yeah.
They're like, sounds real. But I love that. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah,
because
same.
I can't wait to prove them wrong.
Oh, great. That's a good, yeah. Lower their expectations.
Yeah, it's definitely tempering lowering the expectations, I think. There is a sort of direct precedent, which goes into the backstory of starting the label a bit. So my friend Travis Harrison, who is an amazing engineer, has a studio. It's actually his studio in Brooklyn that we work out of when we do BTR live sessions.
Oh, okay.
And he's an old friend of mine who I met. I love telling the story. I met when my old band had no idea what we were doing and was scouring Craigslist to figure out how to find a recording studio. And he had a place that was called The Shack, which was literally a shack in a parking lot in Queens, and he offered free studio time. So long story short, we went there, used studio time, made records, and began this long relationship with him. He was starting a record label at that time, which that band ended up being on, called Serious Business. And it was exactly the same vibe, very tongue-in-cheek, pretty self-deprecating, but it's called Serious Business. So that is absolutely an inspiration for why I went with that name.
Yeah.
Spending a lot of time around Travis. I was at that point when I came up with the name, I was kind of trying to convince him to just let me revive his label.
Oh, I see.
Because he had everything. He has everything in place already.
Right.
Because it's been a little inactive for a long time now. But so that's the direct reference if there was one.
Well, I love that you said that your goal is to prove them wrong, like is to over deliver. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, granted, when I came up with the name, I didn't really have a direct plan. It was just I had some friends who had music that they were taking a long time to figure out what to do with, and I thought I would convince them to let me do it, but then I got busy and didn't do it. But I had the name.
Yeah.
But it was still felt fake at that point, So I was like, well, it's kind of fake, so let's make it totally real.
Was there a tipping point? Because you said you had the name in 2018, and then you started to do things in 2019, and then now I would say it's a fully operating label. It's a normal label on par with everyone else. What was that tipping point? We're saying, let's do this. This is totally real.
Yeah. So I guess I would say that was early. It was early in 2020. I said that the first time I used it was in 2019 for a single for my band, but that was really just to put the name on something as we were putting a single out to test the waters. We ended up releasing the record related to that with another label, with Dad Stash Records. So what happened was that was coming out. We were going to do a bunch of shows and tour and everything. That record came out at the end of February. So everything we planned after our release show was canceled.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
That's a bad time.
Big bummer. So one of those things, we were going to go up to Maine and play a show at the venue I used to work at when I lived there with some friends of mine called Super Order. So I talked to them, and the idea was to put out a single they had from this record they had recorded but didn't know what to do with, to put out a single the week before the show just for a promotional thing. They kind of didn't really know what to do about it, how to promote it. I was like, well, put it on my fake label and I'll help you promote it. And it'll promote the show. It helps everyone. So needless to say, since the shows got canceled, that all didn't happen. But we're like, well, let's still put out the single anyway and give it a shot.
Yeah.
So we did that. That was the first sort of real effort, but I was still considering it fake.
Yeah.
Then after the single comes out, the songwriter from the band sends me a message. He's like, here's the cover, here's the artwork for the album. We want to put it out on April 20th, 420 release.
Nice.
And it had my label logo, the ridiculous cat logo that I've been using on it. I was like, oh, I didn't know I was putting out a full-length record by someone.
That's a great way to sign yourself to a band. Just put their logo on your record. Nice. See if they object.
So, I mean, of course I was down. I was interested, but I hadn't at that point thought about the label as something more than helping friends with digital singles distribution and stuff like that. That was all at that point I was looking to do. I was like, it's going to be a digital label. I can do that. You know, I can run a DistroKid account. I can even have a Bandcamp account and help out with stuff. And that's easy. But they like pushed it into the physical world and into the full length world.
Right.
I was like, all right, I guess this is what we'll do now. So
yeah,
that was the tipping point.
I wonder how many times you've experienced this when you talk to labels, and I feel like I could make a coffee table book about this, but like how many labels do you know that started out by putting a fake label on a CD or a tape?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's such an iconic story. And I did it myself in 2005 without even, or even before that, without even like just totally independent, like not even knowing that was a thing to do. It's just so weird how we all did that.
Yeah. Well, it's just, you need to give a name to something. Yeah.
I mean, I was trying to just trick people.
Well, exactly. I mean, have you ever done the fake manager thing?
Did I? Yes, I've done that. Back in the day, I have done that. Yes.
Such a classic move, right?
It is. It is great.
A whole fake entity.
Fake emails. Yeah. When I found out you could buy a domain name and then you could create any name at your domain name, I was like, well, why aren't I making a nice sounding manager name, a booking agent name, and catfish people? Yeah.
Yep.
So have you hit any roadblocks in your first year? Have you hit anything that has become harder for you than you imagined?
Well, I don't know if you've seen my Twitter activity over this weekend, but yes.
Yes. Yeah, you're calling out the most loved organization in indie music. Go on with this story. I have to censor it.
Hey, they still haven't replied to me, so I am going to go ahead with it. So the story was this past weekend, on Friday, I announced two pre-releases. One is a digital album by an artist called Pharmakos, and that album's called Destroy the System. So that one's coming out February 5th. That went normal. That's fine. It's only up on Bandcamp now. And the other one was a tape. It's the second tape that I've released through the label for an artist named Old Man of the Woods. And I put it up on the artist's Bandcamp page, and people started trying to buy it, and they all got blocked by PayPal.
It's weird.
So it's saying, the error said something about a government restriction, a government guidelines or regulation, something like that.
Bizarre.
And it was very confusing, and you're getting text and emails and tweets and everything.
Yeah.
Mind you, this run of tapes is only 20 tapes. We're doing 20 tapes per edition. It's a very small number.
Sure.
But it's my first time doing anything with this artist.
Yeah.
I was fairly certain that we would sell out of the 20 tapes quickly. So I didn't want to screw this up for anybody. So we do it, and no one's able to buy it. So I spent Friday on the phone with PayPal and all this stuff, and they have not been able to help yet. And I reached out to Bandcamp several times, but have not heard back from them.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's really too bad. And I mean, I've never heard of a technical issue with Bandcamp. Or especially with with PayPal. And I mean, I've been selling on there for over 10 years, and I've never experienced. Well, I mean, maybe my customers have, but they haven't told me.
Right.
That's really too bad.
Yeah. So, and I mean, it's not that I think anyone did something wrong. I have a theory about what's happening.
Okay.
And I think it has to do with the fact that this was released digitally in September through CD Baby. You use CD Baby, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So my theory is it might be that there is because PayPal told me that it looked like it was a copyright flag. There's no samples or covers or anything on the record. So if there's a copyright issue, it must have something to do with some other publishing. And so that would be through CD. So that's what we're working on now.
I mean, that would blow my mind. I've never heard of that. I have heard of that on YouTube, but having CD Baby automatically crawl for copyright material on Bandcamp, that would blow my mind. But it's possible.
Yeah, but it's the only thing left that I can figure. That's why. So that's what we're working on. No hate to Bandcamp. I'm sure I haven't been able to get a word from them about anything.
Well, there's something like, okay, and I'll come to your defense because, I mean, like you said, you're working with a new artist and you're really trying, I'm speaking from my perspective. If I were you, I would be trying to impress them. I'd be trying to prove my value. If you're taking a percentage, you want to prove that worth. And there's also something beautiful. By the way, it's a beautiful looking record and it's beautiful sounding. I was only able to listen to it a little bit on my laptop speakers, but I have to go back to it because it sounds beautiful and it looks beautiful.
It's incredible, and they came out really nice.
Yeah. This the speckled tape is gorgeous, but there is something great, and I know that I imagine you're close to being sold out, even regardless of the technical problems. But like, it's there's something great about selling out very quickly. That's a huge power in that scarcity feeling. Yeah,
and that's what we're going for. So. Well, anyway, long story short, as we figured it out, I looked into other options, and I ended up setting up a web store through Limited Run.
Okay, and how's that going?
It's amazing. We basically sold out. I still have one listed on Bandcamp, but we have people who want. So we're giving it a chance for that to get worked out and sold through there. But at this point, we're probably going to do another edition of it already before it's even released. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's really great. And are you doing a digital release as well, like on Spotify eventually?
It's so the EP itself is already she has it on Spotify. So that's okay. There is this additional exclusive track that's on the tape.
That's a good idea.
And yeah, it's really cool. And this has been a big thing. I've been trying to figure out how to make the tapes special when they're a re-release, essentially, of something that's been out digitally. And it's one of the most fun parts of the project, like collaborating with the artists to figure it out. So for this, Miranda basically went for a walk in the woods. So it's kind of like an odd ambient audio collage, environmental sound design. It's just really, really awesome. It's a 14-minute track and ties in really well with the album. But feels like something brand new. And we have some fun ideas planned around promoting that track specifically. So it's kind of funny, maybe promoting a track that is on a exclusive to a release that the world at large can't hear or access yet. But, we're kind of working it out as we go along and just coming up with ideas to try.
Well, we've talked about that issue with other labels before, and I don't see any problem with that, and I still think it's great. This record never came across my radar until you started promoting it. So at the very least, your following now gets a chance to hear it.
And that's the point. That's why I'm doing this. If I find stuff and I know that, people outside the artist's immediate social circle or a handful of music bloggers or something haven't heard it, then there's a lot more people that should. So that's definitely, that EP is definitely one of those. And, there's more stuff in the works down the road that I hope people will also check out.
That's great. We're talking about struggles, but what about wins? I mean, have you, has anything happened in the past couple of months that made you think, okay, I can do this, this is working?
There's been a bunch of little things along the way.
Like what kind of stuff inspires you or really encourages you?
Well, early on, I'll say because I keep, obviously I keep shifting as I go. I never intended to do tapes, but then I found an affordable tape duplicator, and I was like, I'm doing tapes now too.
Okay.
So that inspired me, just doing that. But I'll say I started out focusing on the digital because that's kind of, what I thought this was going to be in the beginning. And, getting those like random music journalists or playlisters just like excited about stuff. Like every little one was another little fire under me to push along. As much as I know that you you need so much of that to really build a lot of momentum, but still, it's that little like hit, right? Every time you get like a cool quote about something, or you look at your streaming numbers and you see that you got 1,000, your artist got 1,000 plays on some playlist you got them on. It's like, okay, this is something is working to some degree.
Yes. No, I know what you mean. Well, it's got to be affirming too that the artist is excited to work with you too. Just even that.
Oh, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, I started out basically working with friends, and over time, not that much time because I haven't been doing this that long, I started reaching out to artists I didn't know, whose music I came across, and I've been sort of very pleasantly surprised to shocked that they actually want to deal with me, who has no track record. But I've been very lucky in that way. The people I found, I'm collaborating a lot with them, which is, I think goes back to what I was talking about, how I was involved with musicians before starting the label, collaborating in all sorts of ways, more than just, okay, give me your record and I am going to now, get it heard. Although that is a big part of it, but I like being involved in, working on the creative, still doing some art, working on track listing, things like that. So here's what I'm curious about, because you interview labels and you're involved in the music scene through your work and everything, and so you're exposed to all these different initiatives and ideas that labels do, and the hardest part of running a business is often knowing what not to do and what to say no to. So I would imagine if I was in your position and I'm starting a new label, there's so many artists to sign, there's so many things you can do. I mean, you're doing tapes, but vinyl is an option down the road, and merch. A lot of labels do merch, and how do you choose where to focus your efforts in the early stages of starting a label? How do you keep yourself from doing too much? Or have you? I don't know if I can answer that one yet. I started, I would say I started hot by having 3 full-length releases that were all very different, come out really in close proximity to each other.
Okay. You regret that? You regret doing that?
I don't really regret it. I actually feel like it was a good learning experience.
Okay.
I do wish that I could have put a little. I wish that I had had the foresight to do as much planning for them as I did towards the end of it earlier on. That's all.
Yes,
but without having done that before, I don't know how I would have been that prepared.
Right.
But I'm happy with how those went. It was a lot at once.
Yeah. I know this is your episode, but I want to interject and say I was when I got started, my first full year in 2011, I did 12 releases, and then my second year I did 2 releases, and then my third year I did maybe a half, like maybe just an EP. Yeah. And I have, I'm like you, it was a great learning experience, but had I taken half of those 12 and spread them out, like it would have been, I really regret that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something that I'm aware of. Like I said, I wouldn't say I regret it because it was a good learning experience. And it did force me to kind of like get up to speed to where I wanted to be really quickly.
Right. That's true. That's true.
In terms of setting up as much as detailed as setting up spreadsheets and paying attention to certain things I hadn't paid attention to, and also running into some issues, not like roadblocks or big problems, just like stuff I needed to know how to do, whether it's in terms of distribution or the production stuff, or any of that, or planning out social media, where the artists have social media.
Yeah.
And, so some things that were really good to do all at once. At this point, now that I'm on the tape thing, I'm kind of focused on that for the time being, mostly just to see how much I can handle.
Sure.
I want to do 1 a month, which is fine if I'm only doing editions of 20 and I'm hand dubbing them and printing them and stuff. I can manage that. I don't know if that'll go on for 12 months, but it's definitely going to go on for like 6 months.
Right. Yeah, and I think that was the thing I regret about the way I launched was it just wasn't sustainable. You know, it's not that I was able to pull it off, but I just couldn't keep it up. So I think whatever you're working on, it's something you have to determine whether or not you can sustain it.
Yeah, and I think I'm being realistic about that at this point. You know, as I started with those 3 releases, it was kind of I got excited, and then their timelines all shifted into the same place. You know, I didn't say yes to them knowing they were all going to come out November and December.
Yeah.
I said yes to them thinking it would be like July, September, December. So something along those lines, and then they all shifted.
So, are you being like have you learned a lot already? And what is 2021? What does the next 6 months and 12 months look like for you?
Yeah, I've learned a ton. Like I just alluded to, the next 6 months, I think I'll probably have 1 tape release a month, and that's a combination of some more like the 2 I've done already, which are sort of like a recombination of, you know, previously released digital material that I'm sort of repackaging with new music on a tape.
So are you already are talking to someone initially for something that could come out in 6 months from now? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I have several full length records that people have brought me, and so my approach right now is if someone comes to me with a full-length record that they want to put out, and it's not someone who is like ready to pay for vinyl or something like that.
Yeah,
I'll say sure. I mean, and I'm interested in it, and I love the music, and I trust the people. I'm down to say yes. I will put it out as a tape, but here are my demands. I need this. Scottor's modified checklist filled out, completed with all materials, delivered or estimated delivery dates filled out. I need that 3 months before we begin promoting anything.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. So that's why, yes, I do have an idea of 6 months from now.
Well,
I have a
okay, can you walk us through that process? Because, I mean, you are, not only are you wise and older than, let's say, you might have been in launching this label from your dorm in college, but you're also in the music industry, and you're very used to sending people forms to fill out. I've had to fill out your forms a couple times before. It's one of my favorite jobs to do. But you know how systems work. So what does your label work? And I think there's be some people who can learn from that. So talk to me about this like onboarding system that you have.
Yeah. So the onboarding system, definitely, it's a combination of what I learned from you and the processes that I use for my work, which, as you mentioned, does involve sending people release forms, getting permission to use their music. So it's just like that. And I am, constantly working on evolving it and sort of simplifying that to make it as easy as possible for me and the person I need the info from, to the point where I'm just copying and pasting them a link that they are doing something with. I do need to figure out a sort of like foolproof way to have them be able to just fill out the form at the link I send them.
Okay. Like a Google, what do they call those?
They have like, I was looking at like Adobe ones. I don't know. I haven't found one that works universally. That's the problem.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I've tried things out, and I've run into issues each time.
Okay.
So I'm still.
And what does the artist think when they're, sorry to interrupt you, but what does the artist think when they receive this? Are they like, oh, wow, this guy has his act together? Or are they like, oh, I don't do well with paperwork?
I think it does make them take it seriously.
Good.
My goal with it is to make them think about their project in the way that, for me to work with them, I need them to be starting to think about it.
Yeah.
In many cases they haven't before. In many cases it's someone who's an artist who's just creating, and that's the extent of how logically they've thought about what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has a bit of that effect for sure. Also, and this is something I it's a principle that relates to like when I do work and I'm booking bands for things we do. You know, there's certain things where it's sort of a filter where if they can't do this or they aren't willing to do this one thing, it's like a red flag.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
That if they can't complete this task, you're not going to be able to work very well together.
Yes.
And that's not to say something negative about them or that they're not capable of something or their art isn't as valuable as any other, but just me personally knowing, you know, my limitations.
Yeah.
I might not be able to get them where I want to get them in order for everyone to be happy.
Yes.
So
and
I think it's important. Yeah.
Well, and the kind of the boring parts of running a label is emailing an artist and saying, please send me that artwork, or please listen to that mix and get back to me. I need your approval, or please send me those lyrics. I've been asking for lyrics in a Word doc for 3 weeks now. You know, like, I mean, I send like 2 of those a week for forever. And so you're right. If you're having trouble with them just coming into your label for you know, right at the very beginning, then that could be a problem down the road.
Yeah. And I try to be very understanding. If there's someone who's just not a tech person, like not good with computers, and they have issues doing it, like I'm completely sympathetic to that, and I can work with that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But there have been cases already where, you know, I'm interested in something and someone says they want to do something, but then the communication falls apart before it really gets started, and that can be a sign that like this is not going to work. Yeah.
And I mean, so that's something you have to learn through emails and whatnot. So what do you look for in an artist? I mean, assuming you love the music, but I mean, that can't be everything, because you do want to look for diversity. You do want to find music that you could like the music, but maybe you've already released that type of record on your label, or maybe the music scene has enough of those records. What do you look for? What is included in the whole package, quote unquote, for an artist?
It's very hard for me to put into words, you know, because I always just feel it as like a gut feeling, a gut instinct from my ears and eyes being trained for so long, you know, digging through my inbox and various music platforms and such. You're absolutely right about that being a consideration, that I might, you know, love the music, but feel like I've already done enough of that, or there's a lot out there that it would be too difficult to find its place if they don't have a fan base or an audience already.
Totally.
Those are considerations, and certainly things along those lines should be more of a consideration than they have been so far.
Okay.
Not to say that I've like anything has gone horribly wrong, but you know,
I know.
I'm still in the phase where it's fine if I just love something so much, I can release it digitally and promote it, and it's not going to get millions of streams, and it might not sell any records. But as long as we're not losing money on it, like we haven't pressed vinyl, I don't see that as a problem at this.
Sure,
at this
I agree.
point.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Yeah. As long as I believe in the music, I want to have it in my catalog. And you know, obviously, I have to trust the people involved in some way. That's been one of the like more questionable things as I've been reaching out to new artists, because I feel like you don't know the people. What are they like? What are their beliefs? I think this is something that you've talked about, like their beliefs sort of being aligned with yours or your labels, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Where that's important. And it's tricky.
Oh yeah.
How do you put that into words? Or how do you cover everything?
Yeah, you know? I guess you can't ask who they voted for on their onboarding form.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, not that there's an HR department in Totally Real Records, but you know, but it's a factor. Like, no, I do not want. Yeah, I want to be aware of it.
No, I know what you mean. I've actually been thinking, I mean, this could be an offline conversation, because I've been thinking about that with the podcast. It's like, you know, I search for record labels to interview, and I do a modicum of research. I don't have a lot of time to do. I don't hire a private investigator, so I do run the risk of interviewing someone who could be quite problematic for me and for everyone down the road, and it's tough.
Exactly. Like I asked someone, an artist recently, because it came up, or like a flag was raised in my mind because they have an artist name. They have like a performer name.
Okay.
That's not their given name.
Yeah.
So I was thrown off by that in our communications at first, and then they explained it. I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. But at some point I was like, wait, is there any other reason why you're not using your real name in your bio?
Interesting. Yeah, let's Google that.
And they were like, they explained it, and it was totally fine. But we have now like talked extensively, and I feel very comfortable about it. But it was just a moment where I was like, who am I getting involved with here?
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And I mean, that's the kind of thing we don't think of too much, but our job really is to cover as much as we can, just to really think through the process as best as possible. As we were talking, I'm realizing that you're in such a good position to start a label because you're a musician and I assume you're a music fan. Well, I think I know you're a music fan, and you are work in press too. I mean, you're essentially, you work in the media and music media, and you probably have been pitched to before. And so, I mean, has that informed you at all as a label owner or being on the other side of the pitches?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's all informed me. I also I worked in music venues for a long time.
Right.
So that like piece of the industry stuff, and worked on the press side a lot. So I've learned a lot from what I've received. I'd say the most of it is just what not to do. There's a whole lot of what not to do. There's no absolute what to do.
Yes,
with any of it.
Yeah.
But I've learned a lot about what not to do, and certainly gotten some good ideas. There are labels and publicists whose approaches I really respect, and like and appreciate, and all of that. So I've certainly taken some inspiration from those.
That's good. Okay, so now like bringing this all full circle, and I mean you are experienced in all of these different avenues. What advice do you have for someone who is in your position and back in 2019 or 2018? They maybe are sitting on a fake name. Maybe they've reserved a couple of the usernames. What advice do you have for someone thinking about starting a record label?
Just start doing something. Even if you don't know what you're doing, start doing something and try and keep it low risk for cost and legal reasons up front.
You're right.
I mean, I think digitally is a great place to start, because there's kind of a lot to learn, but it's very accessible if you just learn how to do it.
Yes.
And I've gotten really into doing the tapes because I found a way to do it that it does not cost me very much money, but it's opening up a world of new things to learn, new processes, and it's also just fun. So I'd say start small, but just start with something.
Yes.
But have a plan and an idea of where you want to go with it, as much as you can, and be okay with that changing, because that will change constantly in the first 4 years.
That's a great point, and I think that's kind of true with any other kind of business. But I've resigned myself to accept that it's so natural for projects like a record label to maybe never be fully formed, but certainly not start off fully formed. And I think so many of us are just messed up by that. And I see the labels, people I talk to or email me are, they're just doing everything. They're registering their trademark. They're paying $2,000 in legal fees, getting everything done. They basically want to be like a mid-size or major label right out of the gate. And that scares me. I feel like you really should crawl, walk, run type of thing.
Yep. Yeah. I I certainly feel like I agree with what you said. That I'm someone who's in a good position to do this because of my various experience and because I've spent several years now researching running record labels.
Yes. Yeah.
So so I have had a background and sort of head start on a lot of stuff that most people who want to start a record label might not have. But even with that, I didn't go out and do all those things and right away because I know that it's going to be a process of change. And I'm saying even after the point where I was calling it a fake label and all that. Like once once it was August this year, I was still like, okay, I'm going to try stuff, feel it out, and see what feels right and see where this goes. But with the idea that at a certain point in the future, I will have certain check boxes marked off that move you along that road, but not necessarily paint you into a corner of what you're doing.
And I think it's important to kind of have just to prepare yourself to stop pretending to be a fake label and to start saying, okay, like that. I don't know if I mentioned this when we talked last year, but I remember like I didn't take myself seriously for quite some time, for maybe 5 or 6 years. And I feel like I wish I had earlier on. But yeah, I do. Well, it is nice to be.
Well, why didn't you?
Well, because it was always a fake label. It was always.
But you had 12 releases in the first year, and that's fake.
It still was just me having fun, and obviously it came from a place of insecurity, I think, and the imposter syndrome. But I look back now, and it's easier looking back. But I thought, man, I wish I had taken myself seriously. I wish I had invested actual cash into some of these things.
Yeah.
Interesting. What is it called in a sitcom or a TV show when they do like when characters from one sitcom appear in a completely different sitcom? What's that called? As a crossover?
Just a cat. Oh, maybe a crossover. I was going to say like a cameo, but I don't know if that's right. A crossover sounds right.
Like as a character. Okay, well, anyway, this is what this episode is. We've got 2 record label podcasts that are talking, and everyone needs to go and obviously I know our listeners are already a fan of Subliminal Inevitable, but they need to check it out for any of our new listeners. But that's what this episode is. It's a crossover of the 2 podcasts.
Do you know the date of that podcast, of when we recorded that podcast? Because I just saw it and it blew my mind.
Had I already been doing this podcast? Probably.
Oh, you had started. Well, that was how I contacted you, or how I first heard about you, because you started. Like tweeted, I'm going to start a record label podcast, or I just started, or someone retweeted or liked it, and I was like, hey.
Hey, bastard. I honestly,
and look at you now. And now you've built like an empire out of it.
An empire. I'm actually on the top floor of a huge office building that I own right now.
I knew it.
I'm petting a cat. No, I still to this day feel guilty that I didn't discover you in any sort of research, and I didn't really look hard, but I just feel guilty. But to be honest, if I had found you, it may have stopped me. I may have hesitated at least for a couple of months. So
and I wouldn't have wanted that at all, because number one, I enjoy listening to your podcast, and I also feel like they serve two different purposes.
I agree. Thank you.
And I feel like I feel like you have leaned more into yours of like the education and digging into certain corners of the industry and the processes that people use and stuff like that. Whereas I'm trying to kind of like just introduce people to labels and tell the story of them a little bit in a more general fan-based sense. I totally
agree. And what I love about your show, and what I feel like it gives me permission to, my goal with the show is to always been to focus on the people running it and not the artists. I always feel like there's so much press for music out there and for the artists that there's just not enough for the people behind the scenes. And so I love that you kind of pick up that slack for me so that I can completely disregard the artist. I mean, I don't even know, like I haven't even mentioned an
You
artist.
don't even mention them half the time.
I do not. I'm not a fan of music, to be honest. No, Joe.
I had a feeling. Yeah.
And actually, it's just laziness. It's too much research for me.
Right. That's the thing. I love the research part of it. You know, I just get as much music from the labels as possible and just like swirl around my head for a while and figure out a playlist and then like research the artist a bit. And, you know, half the time I come into it, I'm like, I'm going to talk about this one record your label put out 6 months ago, and I don't even know who you are. But let's go.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And they probably love that. Your guests probably love it more because that's ultimately what they're passionate about. I'm passionate about record labels. The record labels that I interview are passionate about their releases. Yeah. Well, when did we do that interview? That was 2018, I guess then, right? Because that's when I started.
It was May 9th, 2018, it looks like.
Oh, wow. And so that's like almost 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
All right.
That's crazy. Well.
So it's great to bring it full circle.
Yes, I know. I totally agree. Thank you so much for doing this. And congrats on Totally Real.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for listening. Go to totallyrealrecords.com to check out this record label, and they're also on Bandcamp, of course, and check out all of their releases and make sure you follow along. If you are in a similar situation as we were talking about today, about thinking about starting a record label and overcoming that imposter syndrome, and I know there's a lot of our listeners who are dreaming about starting a record label or interested in starting a record label. I've put together this free resource that you can download. Go to otherrecordlabels.com/toolkit. It's called the Record Label Toolkit. It's a free download. It comes with a bunch of things. Make sure you grab that. And of course, all our resources are at otherrecordlabels.com. Thank you for listening.